Okay, good morning once again. My name is Franka Vaughan, and I'm happy to have you all here join us for, again, the Solidarity and Diversity Conference being organized by the African Studies Group at the University of Melbourne and with Melbourne Social Equity Institute. It's my pleasure to welcome Uncle Tony Garvey of Wurundjeri country, who has kindly accepted to welcome us to country this morning. Uncle Garvey, thank you for making the time, and please, you have the floor.
Thank you very much for that warm welcome. First off, I'd just like to say Wurundjeri or Wurundjeri to everyone. Wurundjeri or Wurundjeri means welcome in the Wurundjeri language. So welcome to all Indigenous and non-Indigenous people here today. I'd also just like to say I'm very proud and honoured to be here representing my people, the Wurundjeri Wurrung people, and thank you very much for inviting us here to get our story across. The Wurundjeri people are a part of the Kulin Nation. So Kulin means man. In the Kulin Nation, there were 5 language groups. There was the Wathaurong to the west, the Coorong, who were the westerly neighbours to the Wathaurong, Tanarong to the northeast, Tanarong to the southwest, and the Wurrung of the Wurundjeri territory that you stand on here today. The Wurundjeri lies in inner cities of Melbourne. It extends from the mountains of the Great Dividing Range, south to the Yarra River, west to the Werribee River, and east to Mount Baw Baw. The Wurundjeri people, they have a social totem. It is Bunjil the eagle. Bunjil represents spiritual powers throughout many parts of Australia. Bunjil taught all the laws about life, behaviour and ceremonies to make sure that our culture would continue for all walks of life throughout Australia. Bunjil is referred to as the creator of mankind. Bunjil created great people from the land, and that is why we call the land our mother, or mother of creation. Never can the land be taken away. The land will always belong to Aboriginal people, because we are part of the land and the land is part of us. Our story is similar to yours. Yours is by your chosen faith, ours is by the dream time. We both have creators and beliefs, and ours is Bunjil. It is a traditional custom of the Australian Aboriginal communities to be asked and to give permission for people to enter their land. And today you have now joined with me to honour the spirits of my ancestors, past, present and emerging, who have nurtured this land for over 60,000 years. And we as the custodians of the land offer you a heartily welcome to the land and hope that together as citizens of this beautiful country, we can build, develop and unite stronger nations for all people. And finally, just to close, Wurrung is Wamidjika, Wandun, Wurundjeri, Balak, and Kumbibik, which means is the most welcome to the land of the Wurundjeri people. Thank you very much for having me here today.
Thank you so much, Uncle Garvey, for that
Thank
warm
you.
welcome to country. I'll hand over to Kenendy Mbeva to take us through the rest of the proceedings. Thank you.
No worries. Thank you.
Thanks a lot, Uncle Garvey, as well, for the very warm welcome to country. And thank you, Franka, for the floor. As the chair of this...
Thank you.
Great. As the chair of this year's conference, I'm very happy to welcome you all. And I'll start by acknowledging the traditional owners of the land, the Wurundjeri people of the Kulin Nation, on whose land I work and live, and recognize their continuing connection to land, water, and community. I pay my respects to elders past, present, and emerging, and I also acknowledge that sovereignty on this land has never been ceded. And I also appreciate the overview and the very warm welcome from Uncle Garvey. So on behalf of the Africa Studies Group and the Conference Organizing Committee, I'm excited to welcome you to the inaugural conference for this year, titled Solidarity in Diversity, Highlighting Marginal Voices in Academia, Practice and Society, which is running from 19th to 23rd July 2021, that is Monday to Friday this week. For those of you who have traveled from overseas and interstate, digitally, that is, for this conference. Welcome to the University of Melbourne, Australia. And to those of you at the University of Melbourne or within Victoria, digitally as well, you're equally welcome. The Africa Studies Group is an association of researchers whose interests in Africa Studies is hosted by the University of Melbourne. The Africa Studies Group, or the ASG as we call it, provides an enabling platform for informative and supportive collegial discussions. It meets once a month and it is open to scholars of African descent, scholars interested in African studies, and the general public. The Africa Studies Group originally emerged or was founded as a reading group in 2012, when a group of academics at the University of Melbourne observed that they lacked a platform for scholarly engagement with African studies beyond the individual research work. The Africa Studies Reading Group, as it was then called, was therefore created as a platform for collegial discussion, and it met on a monthly basis. The focus of the group was basically a selection of papers and books of interest, which were circulated to its members. Members read and discussed the readings for each month. The focus of the group has been widened since to include master's students and any other person interested in the intersection of Africa and Australia, broadly defined. This has been done through vigorous awareness creation at the university, building partnerships, as well as engaging with other universities in Victoria. In 2016, the group was renamed to the Africa Studies Group. That's the name that we are currently using. This was done to incorporate additional activities such as seminars, workshops, panel discussions, community engagement activities, conferences, and many more. So there are a couple of milestones that the Africa Studies Group has reached, which I would like to just quickly give an overview, just to give a context. To illustrate the evolution of the ASG into a broader and more robust platform, there are several milestones from recent activities. These include, last year, we held our first or inaugural conference, international conference on borders, identities, and belonging in a cosmopolitan society, perspectives from African migrants in the diaspora. And the conference was convened from 12th to 14th March 2020. And it was, we managed to convene it just before the borders were closed due to the COVID pandemic. So you could see the relevance of the theme back then. And we were very lucky to get two keynote lectures from Professors Sabelo Ndlovu and Michael Bafo, which bookended the conference. In 2017, this is another milestone. The ASG held its first panel discussion titled, "Is Separatism a Viable Solution for African Problems, given the failed example excuse me, of South Sudan?" So the panel discussion was well attended and drew in panelists from the academic community, practitioners, and students. Another milestone is that in 2018, we organized another panel discussion titled "Building Bridges Between Communities of Color in Australia," a panel discussion on anti-racist coalitions. This event also drew panelists from practitioners, academics, and others across Australia, that is other peoples of color, and it was very well attended and received. The penultimate milestone that I'll cover today is that in 2019, we had another panel discussion titled "The Dilemma of Resigning Presidents in Africa," and the panelists constituted PhD students in law and the social sciences. And the panel looked at whether it would come to a point where presidents in Africa would resign when their mandate was no longer tenable. It's a very interesting panel discussion, as you could imagine. And finally, the last milestone that I'll highlight is that in 2020, the ASG, in 2021, we are organizing our second international conference, which is this year. And the title is "On Solidarity in Diversity," highlighting the voices of marginal voices in academia, society, and practice. And the theme of this year's conference could not be more timely, given the social issues that have come up over the last couple of years, be it as illustrated by Black Lives Matter, or also the COVID-19 pandemic. we have committed as a group to host these annual conferences up to next year, but with an intention of having more conferences over and beyond next year. And we also seek to draw on academic, practitioner, and community experiences in developing a deeper understanding of some of the challenges that we face. So while concluding, I'll just give you a brief overview of how we've structured this conference, just to underscore the point that we're trying to build a platform that is as engaging as possible. And we'll have 2 keynote lectures. We had the first one yesterday by Professor Mamdani, and we have another keynote lecture on Friday by Ms. Abiola. And those 2 keynotes, one academic, one based on community experience, they draw the different dimensions of the kind of solidarity that we need or we could have in building better societies. We had a very interesting and stimulating conference debate yesterday, where the University of Melbourne and the University of Newcastle teams debated. We had a conference masterclass that was planned for yesterday morning, but it was postponed to later in the year because we want to create a space where there can be a more robust discussion, in-person discussion. We have academic and practitioner panels starting today. So today and tomorrow is academic panels, and Thursday and Friday is practitioner panels. And in doing so, we're creating a space where academics and practitioners and community members can share their work with the broader audience and engage them with the work. We also have a cultural presentation on Friday, which will also include a performance. So details will be released as we get closer to Friday. So in concluding, the program for the conference is very exciting. We had a great day yesterday, and we've had a great day starting today with a very warm welcome from Uncle Garvey. And in the next couple of days, we will engage with various presentations from scholars, practitioners, policymakers, community members, and many more. So I welcome you to this conference, Wurundjeri. So at this point in time, I'd like to note the presence of Professor Jeniffer Ballint, who's the head of school, social and political sciences, who's been very kind to take time to come and officially welcome us to the conference and officially launch it. So I'll hand over the floor to Professor Ballint to officially welcome us and kickstart our conference officially.
Oh, thank you. Yeah, welcome. Fantastic. Thank you so much, Kenendy. And what a wonderful way to start us off this morning. I'd also like to acknowledge that I'm meeting on the lands of the Wurundjeri people of the Kulin Nation on this very grey Melbourne morning. And acknowledge elders past, present and emerging, and that sovereignty, the land that we're on, was never ceded. And it was wonderful to hear from Uncle Tony earlier in such a beautiful way to really welcome us to country. And thank you, Kenendy, and thank you so much to the African Studies Group and the Melbourne Social Equity Institute for inviting me to officially open this conference. I feel that I need a ribbon and we can't do that by Zoom. So I'll do as best I can. I'm really thrilled to be invited to do this. It's such a fantastic conference. Looking through that program, it is so rich. It's got so many layers to it. What I really love is the way in which research and practice are so beautifully integrated through the whole program. It's not just about the university, it's about the university with the community and communities that we work with, that we partner with. And that comes through so strongly on this program, and it's really thrilling to see. And it's such a rich and diverse program that really does do justice to the title of this conference, Solidarity in Diversity. So I really want to thank and congratulate the organising committee on doing such a fantastic job of bringing so many different strands together. So the African Studies Group very much brings so much to our university, to Melbourne University, to the Faculty of Arts and to the School of Social and Political Sciences. And the work that the African Studies Group is so appreciated and really brings new dimensions and really important dimensions to all the themes that come through in this conference, and as does the Melbourne Social Equity Institute, the work that they do in partnership very much brings a richness to this university. So to see the two partnering together, I think is really fantastic. The last night's keynote by Professor Mahmoud Mamdani was just amazing, as was the response by Kenendy Mbeva. So congratulations, Kenendy, on such a thoughtful response and such a thought-provoking response that you gave, and a really fantastic way to start the conference. And it made me remember, and I just wanted to say a few words around this, that it was actually Professor Mahmoud Mamdani's work that really started me on the kind of work I do in recognising genocide as state crime. And so I was looking up some of the work that I'd used many years ago when I was doing my PhD, and if you'll indulge me, I just wanted to kind of read out something that I had reflected on in my book that came out of my PhD many years ago about Mamdani's work and what he really has got us to think about. And I really saw that last night as well. And I wrote that in the context of Rwanda, and I was looking at Rwanda and a range of different case studies of genocide and state crime and how law had responded. And I wrote that in the context of Rwanda, Mamdani comments that in 1995, less than 1 year after the genocide, a growing consensus in Rwanda involved two propositions. The first was that the number legally responsible for genocide and the number that one can politically afford to hold responsible are not the same. Within this observation, Mamdani makes a crucial point that the answer to the question, who planned the genocide, cannot begin with an identification of individuals. The brief response to this question, he notes, must be the state power, and only then will the responsibility for the genocide be political, not ethnic. And how Mamdani, in this 1996 article that I was drawing on, kind of how he made that point was really influential for me in particular. And I think it was such an incredibly important intervention at that time around how do we do justice for these kinds of crimes, and how do we not just do justice, but how do we look ahead, and how do we create frameworks and structures that actually lead to prevention, that lead to ways of people living together, and understanding that a focus on just individual responsibility will not actually get us there. We have to think of the political, the state structures. We have to actually identify these as state crime. So as part of my work, I was very fortunate to visit some of the legal processes that were happening in Rwanda, in Ethiopia and South Africa, and using Mamdani's work has always been very important to my own. So I felt very fortunate to be able to be there last night, and really congratulate the organising committee on facilitating that. And I'm equally looking forward to the final keynote from Ms. Abiola Akintonobi from the Asylum Seeker Resource Centre, because I think grounding it back in the local, in what's happening here, in partnership, in understanding the precarious ways in which so many people, the precarity of so many people's lives here where we are, that the Asylum Seeker Resource Centre is so attuned to, and we learn so much from, and we need to partner with them. That's also, I think, going to be a really fitting way to end this conference. So I very much am looking forward to this conference. I think it is such a fantastic contribution. Really congratulate everyone who's been involved, and thank you for inviting me. And I will declare with the ribbon and the scissors, I would very much like to declare this conference, Solidarity in Diversity, officially open. Thanks so much.
Thank you so much, Professor Ballint, for the official welcome. Now we can confidently say that we have an official mandate to launch the program. But not only that, but we also had a very warm welcome to country. And that's a very good starting point to getting started. So before we segue into the main, the first panel today, I'd be remiss if I don't acknowledge the various partners that have enabled us to put together this conference. At first and foremost, I pay special thanks to the Melbourne Social Equity Institute, who are co-organizers of this conference, and they've been instrumental in helping us to put together this conference, specifically Charlene and Claire. Thank you very much for co-organizing this conference together. But we're also doing so with great support from financially and otherwise from the University of Melbourne Chancellery. We have Scanon Foundation, African Engagement Platform, University of West Australia, Africa Research and Engagement Center, and the Institute for Post-Colonial Studies. So just to highlight that they've been integral in helping to bring this conference together. And a stellar team of organizers who you will get to be introduced to later during the conference will brought all this together.